All right, I call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Jodine, has attendance been taken?
Yes.
Thank you. I now suggest that the board meet in closed session under Section 8(1)D of the Open Meetings Act for the discussion of real estate. Do I have a motion to move into closed session?
So moved. Second.
Jodine, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Campbell?
Yes.
Trustee Hadley?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Sullivan?
Yes.
Trustee Silva?
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau?
Yes. All right, we will now recess to closed session, and we will reconvene at 7 p.m. Now we will reconvene for our regular meeting at 7 p.m. Jodine, has attendance been taken?
Yes.
Now we will move on to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? That passes. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? The consent agenda passes. Now moving on to public comments. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to speak before the board. Topics must be related to Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees or matters within their authority. To speak during the allotted time on the agenda for public comment, please fill out a public comment form with the executive assistant before the allotted time. Participants may only speak once per meeting, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. You can also reach out to the board by emailing boardcomments@aadl.org. The AADL public comment policy can be found at aadl.org/public comment. Jodine, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to communications from trustees. All trustees will have the opportunity to speak to the public. Seeing no communications from trustees, we will now move on to financial reports with Eli.
All right, your financial reports begin on the page marked 16 in your packet. So as of March 31st, that's 75% of the way through the fiscal year. At this point, we have a general fund balance of $8.5 million. Our tax receipts so far, we have received $22.9 million. That's 101.83% of the budget. As you know, we budget conservatively for tax revenue because you never quite know where it's going to go. So this is the time of year when you're really just trickling in. These payments were mostly due back in July. So there's only a few of them that are still coming in. So I think we will probably come just touching 102% by the time we get to the end of the year. So our unassigned fund balance at the moment is $7.7 million. That's what is undesignated to other funds. Reminding that back in November, we transferred about $2.8 million to the capital fund. On page 17, our total revenues are 76% of budget after 75% of the fiscal year. That also reflects all the non-tax revenue that is running ahead, because tax revenue running ahead is not recognized until the end of the year. So that difference between the 75% and 76.6% is all our other revenue items, which are doing better than expected, as we'll see in just a moment. Our year-to-date expenditures are $15.1 million. That's 65.7% of the budget. Good place to be at 75% of the way through the fiscal year. That puts us in a position of right now about $2.2 million surplus operating at this point. So I expect that'll increase a little bit more before the end of the year. We're still not doing a lot of capital projects, especially not at the downtown library. So I expect that still to increase a little bit more, and we should be in position to make another nice contribution to the capital fund after the audit is completed this fall. On page 18, just one thing to point out there is the Friends Fund stands at $48,000 after a $25,000 gift was received. We do expect to receive another gift from them before the end of the fiscal year. So the Friends are really doing great. All right, just running down on page mark 20, the various lines over or behind at 75% of the way through the fiscal year. You can see there the two small lines on the revenue side that are over 200%, much more than we were expecting, but both on very small lines, really. So that's not a big deal. Non-resident fees is running a little bit low, but again, that's like budgeted for $17,000 for the whole year, so that's not very alarming, and it's more than made up for with the over in the others accounts, which was what puts us at 76.7% of our projected revenue, 75% of the way through the year. Running down the expenditures line, you can see we're just at 71% on personnel costs. Accounting and audit, right where we expect to be. Well, that's pretty much done spending on that line for this year. Communications and copier have been above, so those will need some adjustment as we get to the end of the year. Operating supplies also, it's something we've talked about where there's things that have been moved, so we will be making an adjustment on that at the end of the year as well. Purchase services, barely over at this point. We'll see where that winds up. We're, of course, using more than we normally would with all the work that's going on with the agreements and such and development projects. And capital outlay running way under, mostly because we've tackled so few things at this point so far in the year. So that's what we would expect. That brings us all to total expenditure line of 65.7% of our expenditures, 75% through the year. You can see the bottom right on that page, that's the $2.5 million surplus that we are currently operating. And those are the highlights from the financial report. Any questions?
Wonderful. Thank
Right,
you, Eli.
thank you.
Now we'll move into committee reports, starting with the executive committee. On my end, we largely discussed the evaluation, more so the preparation of the evaluation of Eli, our executive director, in his review. And we had also talked about the public budget that we will discuss later tonight. And then I'm also going to cover Budget and Finance Committee for Lisa. And unsurprisingly, we also talked about the budget that we are going to discuss tonight as well. Moving on to Facilities Committee with Scott.
Yep, so we met at near the beginning of the month. So in that meeting, Len shared some updates about the ALF. So we've got the drawings for the parking lot expansion out there and the location of the storage building that we're planning. So that was all moving along towards getting township approval and getting that project moving. We also heard an update about the Westgate generator. So as of the beginning of the month, we were still waiting on DTE to approve our gas line location and meter location, but otherwise everything seems to be in order for that project to get going. So assuming nothing has hung that up, we're still anticipating that by fall, installed by fall. Yeah. So we'll be ready for winter at Westgate should we need it. And otherwise, we just talked about the negotiations with the city on the transfer agreement we'll be voting on tonight.
Thank you so much, Scott. Now we'll move on to the library report with Eli.
All right, if you guys can bring that up on the screen there. Here is our report for April 2026. Okay, whoops, and I pressed the wrong button. Oh, wrong slide. Start at the beginning. Okay, so here's our stat of the month. Today we're looking at players about prize books is what we're talking about here today. So going back longer than I've worked here, the big prize for the end of the summer activity was a prize book. And for many years, that was funded exclusively by the Friends. As summer games started to grow, it kind of grew beyond the point where it was within the range of the Friends donation to be able to fund it. And that was something that we then moved that internally and started funding that out of regular operating funds. Well, I'm happy to say that now that the Friends have bounced back from the pandemic and relocated to their new location, and they're now doing great out there, they are on track to give us very close to the amount of money that we used to receive from them back pre-pandemic. So that's terrific. And what we will be doing with some of that money is using Friends money once again to purchase prize books for people who have completed the summer game. Now, what is completing the summer game? Right? There is no real completion of the summer game. What you can do is complete the summer reading challenge, which is one component of the summer game. And if you read 10 books for kids, or read or complete 10 anythings for adults or teens, then you can get a completion code. What we have here on the chart is a number of players per year who have entered that completion code. So you can see that it's something, last year it grew, like over 10%, and prior years always continuing to grow. But you can also see in a year when we had big growth for the summer game, it's only about 8% increase in the number of prize books that were distributed. And it's much lower than it used to be kind of in the early years of the summer game and even pre-summer game, mostly because the book used to be the only thing that you could get. Now, increasingly, I think one thing we're proud of is we have taught our summer game players how to use the library. And when you use the library enthusiastically, owning a book is not quite as exciting as it used to be. You'd rather have library umbrellas or library t-shirts or those kinds of things. So, but that still grew 8% last year over the previous year, the number of prize books. But it's just great to see the Friends bringing us to the point where we are expecting to receive probably $75,000 from them this year, most of which will go into summer game prizes and other special projects that we're able to do in support of literature and reading and supporting kids' use of the library. So any questions about that? All right. Here's some upcoming events. So one thing that we have at the library is we have our big expos and fests. We also have days, which are things that are smaller than expos and fests. Days don't usually have a vendor. They're usually less complicated. They may not have a whole ton of outside programming. But the days are sort of like a mini expo, only much smaller. So Star Wars Day Observed is coming up on May 3rd. May the 4th be a Monday, so that's not such a great day to do a big public event. So May 3rd will be Star Wars Day Observed at the Downtown Library of Star Wars-inspired crafts, a live concert with the 3POs. We had them last year. They're terrific. And screenings of The Empire Strikes Back, definitely the best one, and the animated Star Wars The Clone Wars film, which is also really good. So that's coming up May 3rd from 11 to 4. Then on May 16th, we have RPG Day. That goes from noon to 3:30 p.m. That's 2 blocks of game sessions run by experienced game masters, plus paint and take miniatures in the lobby. So that'll be a great day for RPG fans coming up at the Downtown Library on May 16th. All right, here's some more upcoming events in May. The Friends of the Library bag sale. That'll be on May 16th out at the ALF from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can fill a bag for $5. The Friends will provide the bags, and you stuff them with books, puzzles, and CDs for just $5 a bag. So we encourage everyone to head out to the Friends bag sale. It's a big part of their revenue and a great way for them to get rid of a bunch of inventory. So please help them get rid of their inventory. Coming up on June 6th, Chuck Tingle. We've booked them for AADL. It's from 6:30 to 7 p.m. on June 6th at the Downtown Library. Chuck Tingle will perform a one-time revival of the Bury Your Gays book tour, now arriving in Michigan for the first time ever. Join Chuck for a one-man show of games and revelations with a Q&A to follow. Request a copy of this year's Big Gay Read, Bury Your Gays, today at aadl.org/thebigGayRead. Very excited to have Chuck coming. They're a big fan of libraries, and that's why I encouraged us to go for it, and it worked out. So I'm so excited to have them here. So that should be coming up on June 6th. All right, here's an event recap. Not this past weekend, but the one before that was a double expo weekend. On April 18th and 19th, we had Record Store Day on Saturday, Gardening and Farm Fest on Sunday. Nearly 7,000 people came through the door between those two events over that weekend. And now, so far with 3 of our expos and fests in 2026 alone, that's those 2 plus AAFAX, the Fiber Arts Expo, that's already 11,000 people through the door of the Downtown Library just on those 3 days. So a very busy place, and like we are always saying, we need more space for such things. Here's an update on a new contest we're trying this summer. We're looking for the community and summer game players to design their very own summer game stickers for 2026. We'll take 3 of our favorites and create official vinyl stickers for our sticker vending machine. Every design will be formatted for our pinback button machines, so artists can print their designs and bring them to our ADL events and make their own button, even if their art isn't selected. And we are hoping for, the werewolf. That caught the nation's attention. Hopefully we will have a similarly awesome summer game piece of artwork for our sticker contest. So we encourage people to enter the sticker contest and get some great designs this summer. Here's just an update from ADL out in our industry. The American Library Association interviewed librarian and co-summer game lead Emily Murphy for an article on the summer game. Shared widely in the library world, the article sparked even more inquiries than usual from libraries of all sizes and from all over the country wanting to learn more about our amazing program. So thank you to Emily for doing such a great job being interviewed by Programming Librarian, which is a blog operated by the American Library Association. And it was great to see that. Okay, AADL in the community. We received a wedding invitation from 2 AADL admirers for whom the library has been a big part of their relationship since the beginning. The wedding was in Grand Rapids, so we sent our regrets. However, we're so happy to be a part of people's lives, bringing people together in all sorts of ways. I'll read the note here. Ann Arbor District Library has always been a big part of our relationship. On one of our first dates, we went searching for summer game codes together. We've gone on many dates to AADL ever since, including dancing at the silent disco, making mini libraries, building birdhouses, and more. Now we're getting married, and we wanted to share the celebration with you. Thanks for being such a special part of our relationship. Love from Catherine and Lauren. So thank you to Catherine and Lauren for your enthusiastic use of the library. By my count, this is the 5th library originated wedding or library adjacent wedding that we're aware of. So we're doing our part. A nice post from AADL Archives. A Facebook user shared the following message on Facebook a few weeks ago. I woke up this morning to a Google News alert on my maiden name. Apparently AADL is digitizing old Ann Arbor news issues, and my front page moment from 2000 is up. I like the timing of this with the U.S. women just winning the gold and the PWHL's growth of late. From Carrie Boer Hadler, who was on the front page of the Ann Arbor News back in 2000, and a wonderful photo digitized by our archives team. Here's our staff spotlight for this month is Evelyn Hollinshead, librarian. She's a PLA from 2011 to 2012 and has been a youth librarian here since 2014. I'm a big-time hobby fan. I'm a garment sewist. Note the dress I made to match this iconic WNBA ball. Cut flower gardener, ice cream maker, and most recently, aspiring beekeeper. Evelyn is, like I said, one of our youth librarians, a big part of the story team. So thank you to Evelyn for all your work at the library. Here's our mention of the month from Chuck Tingle himself. So honored that Bury Your Gaze has been chosen as this year's Big Gay Read by AADL from June to July. They have a series of events themed around the book, kicking off with a revival of the Bury Your Gaze tour show, which I'm bringing back live and in person. Let's Trot Ann Arbor. So this is the ad that his team produced, and very excited to see that, and looking forward to a great summer with those events as well. Here's our compliment of the month. We accidentally returned a big book of Lego projects to Malletts Creek instead of the Allen Elementary Library. I just wanted to say thank you for being so kind as to return it. Our Allen librarian was certain you would all get it back to her, and sure enough you did. Hope you all have a great weekend. We do make, this is something that happens quite often, as you can imagine, and we always make sure to get any items that belong to AAPS libraries back to their home library as quickly as we can. And here's our complaint of the month. I am writing inquiring regarding food policy at the local library. I was at Malletts Creek yesterday working from a table by the fireplace chairs. At some point, a patron sat across from me and unboxed a lunch of fresh Indian food, which included some type of aromatic curry-like dish and naan. Though I enjoy Indian food for my own meals, I certainly don't enjoy the smells in areas outside of restaurants or public eating spaces. Smell is very disruptive to a very neutral public space. I asked one of the people at the desk if there's a food policy at the library, and the person said there is not. Anyway, I'm writing to inquire whether food policy has been considered in the past, or if one could be considered in the future. Malletts Creek has been a space by the front for the door vending machines, which could be far more appropriate for eating a full meal. Thank you for your consideration. So it is correct, we do not have a food policy. We used to, and we did away with it because it basically was keeping people from being comfortable in the library. However, this is one of those situations where those of us from the library industry know that the reference interview would have made all the difference here. Because the question, do you have a food policy, wasn't the right question. The right question was, I'm being disturbed by someone else's meal, right? And then that's a situation that the staff can deal with. The staff wasn't even told that there was actually a problem. They were asked the question that there was a food. So I have responded to this patron, said, it is correct, there's no food policy. However, we do have a rule about disturbing other people's use of the library. And if you encounter something in the future, please make sure that the staff is aware, and we'll do what we can, depending on the situation, to resolve it as needed. But it is true that we're not about to make a food policy which is difficult to enforce and difficult to determine when it's a mess and when it's not a mess. But it is really about the mess and the disruption and not about the food itself. Any questions about that? Okay, that's my report for this month. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Eli. We will now go into old business, and we will have an update on the redevelopment of the downtown library with Eli again.
Okay, so we have some progress. We have an agreement in front of you today. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Parallel to that, we continue doing the work to prepare to take the development opportunities above the library to market for a public-private partnership this fall. So that's something we're continuing to work on, both assessing the feasibility, assessing what we want to see, and being in a position to do some public engagement this fall prior to the release of a request for proposals. So we got a big milestone on the agenda tonight, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And aside from that, the work continues.
Love to hear it, and you're going to stay right there because we're also going to hear an update about the acquisition of the Ann Arbor Observer.
Yes, thank you. So this work continues. As I mentioned last time, we have our consultant from the Lenfest Institute who's been talking with everybody involved and working towards finding a way forward. And he's got some great ideas that we're currently in the process of discussing. Anything that happens would come before the library board before anything was acted on. And as we get closer to this, it's likely that we'll have our Lenfest Institute partner partners come and present to the library board about what they see as the way forward. So that'll be in the future, but things, lots of conversation, lots of details, and at this point, we are still talking about how it might work. And that's the big step that we're working on in the present.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eli. Now moving on to new business. We have a resolution to approve the purchase agreement for the air rights at Library Lane and to authorize the director to sign the agreement. We are absolutely going to do this round robin because it is a long one. Whereas AADL has expressed interest in developing a mixed-use building with substantial housing as well as a new library on the city library lot property. Whereas in August 2025, the voters approved amendments to the city charter authorizing the city to convey a property interest in the library lot to the AADL.
Whereas AADL and the city have come to a tentative agreement on the form of a purchase agreement and subsequent easement, development, and construction agreement to convey air rights over a portion of the library lot property and pursue approval and construction of a mixed-use housing development and new public library. Now, therefore, the board resolves.
1, to approve an agreement of purchase for air rights over a portion of the library lot purchase agreement with the City of Ann Arbor in substantially the form attached, and that the director is authorized and directed to sign the purchase agreement.
2, that the director is authorized to negotiate and execute the easement, development, and construction agreement, EDCA, consistent with the terms of the purchase agreement.
3, to approve the granting of all easements necessary for the city to operate the library lot parcel and parking structure or perform any other city activity at or after conveyance of the air rights property, approval or amendment of the proposed project, or construction of the project, after such easements are approved by the director.
4, to approve the acceptance of all easements on, over, through, or beneath the library lot property necessary for the approval, construction, or operation of the project, including utilities, access, and maintenance, after such easements are approved by the director.
5, that the director is authorized and directed to sign the purchase agreement, the EDCA, and all related easements, instruments, and other agreements. And I'll finish it off. 6, that the director is authorized to take all appropriate actions to implement this resolution and the purchase agreement, to exercise all determinations and authority delegated to the library under any agreement contemplated by this resolution, and to negotiate, execute, and manage all ancillary documents, instruments, and agreements. And 7, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to call for a motion before we have a discussion and vote.
So moved.
Second.
Now discussion.
Third.
Yay.
So it's been let me set the stage just a little bit. It's been a long road getting to this moment, but this agreement is basically, in principle, what we talked about all last summer. It has all of the requirements as discussed in the ballot language, and it is moving forward the transaction of the air rights through the public bodies that govern them, that will be selling them, that will be purchasing them, and then authorizing the city administrator, Milton Mahoney, on the city side, and me to negotiate the small details of the easements, which there's a lot of them, and they add up to a lot. But they are all within the framework that this agreement has defined. So it is mostly about, like it says, over, around, and through, guaranteeing access that the city would need to their parking garage, guaranteeing access that the library would need for its construction, all those kinds of things moving forward. So we're in a very strong position to take over roughly the next 60 to 90 days and negotiate all of those final details before we close on this transfer of air rights, after which apparently kind of nothing will happen, right? Because that will be the transfer of the space above the agreement, above the parking structure to the library. And then we then have that in our hands and are able to move forward with choosing development partners and starting on a design.
I'll say on my end, this is, of course, an enormously complex project that has been under initiative, I think we can say definitively, for not just this specific piece, but this entire effort for many years. I think that thanks are owed to, one, the folks that really labored and volunteered for proposals A and B to allow that to happen, the voters for giving us their faith, but also our library staff for keeping this place excellent in terms of its service while we have this enormously complicated project going on in the background. Additionally, city staff and administration for bringing this to us and being a partner in this very, very large undertaking so far.
Yeah, I want to thank the voters. I want to thank Eli for all of your work and your staff. The city as well, of course. They've been working together with Eli to make this happen. And I just want to say, you know, in these times, this is your government at work in a really positive way. And it's just an exciting thing to feel like we can be a part of that positive collaboration, innovation in the public sphere.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, this is a huge step forward in realizing our vision of a new, amazing library on this site, and I'm so excited to see it go forward. And I similarly want to express a lot of gratitude to the people who volunteered to get Props A and B passed, to the voters who trust us with this property to kind of realize this vision we've put forward. I'd also really like to thank City Administrator Mahoney, who brought this idea to us. And you know, we were very eager to work it out, and I'm glad we were able to come to this agreement now, which really sets the stage for everything that's going to happen. And to the City Council for their unanimous, enthusiastic support for this project and this direction. And yeah, I hope I'm looking forward to see what we can bring to the city. So thank everybody who's worked to make this happen.
Yeah, let's go.
Yes. I want to thank all the people everybody else already thanked, but I also just want to, I spent all last summer talking about what we would accomplish, what we could accomplish with this space. And now the space is, we're finally getting this land. And so I just want to like hold in our minds again the vision of new housing that we desperately need, a big auditorium for these huge events that we're regularly throwing, expo space for these events that draw thousands of people in a single day, an incredible new children's room, a cafe, shops, a library that doesn't smell like poop sometimes because of...
It smells more like pee, I'd like to clarify.
There's gonna be so much to be so excited about in this new space, and it feels incredible to have reached this moment where we're taking this big step forward. And so, yes, thank you to Eli and the staff and Milton and all of the folks who have gotten us here.
I agree with everything that's been said. I feel the same appreciation for the voters and for city staff and our city leaders. This is a really important milestone. It's not the last milestone, you know, so I am hopeful that, you know, all the stakeholders who've been working together will continue to collaborate effectively, that we can put some momentum behind this and, you know, meet the time points that have been set forward between now and the end of the year. And I can't wait to be at this meeting talking about, you know, the next milestone we've met in this process.
Let me just add a few other extra details that we know that our patrons are very interested in, which is that the downtown library as it is expected to stay in operation until 2029. We don't yet know when in 2029 construction will start, but it's not likely to start any earlier than the beginning of 2029. So we still have a number of years before this building closes for the last time. We also have the intention of providing a alternate downtown library throughout construction. We will not be trying to operate at any point through that. We won't know what the location is till we get closer to the time, because it'll depend on what temporary space is available. But we will have a temporary downtown library that will open very close to the time that the downtown library closes, and will stay in operation until the new shiny downtown library is about ready to open. So that's all yet to come. We'll also have plenty of opportunities here in this room with this board for the public to engage with the design and to give us feedback on what they want to see in the building, and for the community to engage with what they want to see in their library. And that's all yet to come with we have not yet reached 1% of the design process all by itself, let alone construction. So there's still, the journey of 1,000 miles. We're almost taking the first step. And so tonight, it is a big milestone for the project with so many more milestones yet to come. And we just, again, want to thank all of our patrons, all of our staff, and all of you, and all of the voters for bringing us to this point where we have such a great opportunity to make something special happen for the whole community.
Wonderful. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those opposed? That resolution passes. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to a resolution of thanks to Kathy Hoskins upon her retirement. The board resolves that it would like to officially thank Kathy Hoskins upon her retirement for her dedicated service as an employee of the Ann Arbor District Library from August 9th, 2005 to April 6th, 2026. 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Just want to thank Kathy for her many years of excellent service. She was a building supervisor and then later head of the circulation team, all of the building supervisors, and was always just a calm voice of support for the staff, for the patrons, for the library, and just always making sure that everybody had what they needed to be able to succeed in their jobs or in their work as patrons or whatever people needed. So thank you to Kathy, and congratulations on your retirement and best wishes.
Wonderful. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? This resolution passes. Now we will move on to item C, resolution of thanks to Robin Madigan upon her retirement. The board resolves, 1, that it would like to officially thank Robin Madigan upon her retirement for her dedicated service as an employee of the Ann Arbor District Library from December 1st, 1988 to February 12th, 2026. 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So Robin was a fixture in this organization for many, many, many years. If you check out something from the library, there's an extremely good chance that Robin touched it, because she either was circulating it, or she was putting barcode stickers on it, or she was getting it ready for circulation, and she was a core part of our acquisitions team for many years, making sure that all the new things were hitting the shelf as quickly as possible. And always, again, a very calm force and a great person to talk to, and always very reasonable and working on projects constantly. So best wishes to Robin in her retirement. Thank you for all your years of service and for all your dedication and for all of the things you brought to the community through your work at the library.
Wonderful. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? This resolution passes. We will now move on to the discussion of the proposed 2026-2027 budget.
Okay, so this is not an item of action. This is the first draft of the budget. It has come through the Finance Committee, and I just want to hit on a couple highlights here. One thing is that this draft is from before we had received the final equalization report from the county, which estimates how much tax revenue we will receive, as well as before the L4028 came out, which tells us what the Headley reduction fraction will be. Okay, so that just came out, the L428 just came out today. So what that does is it tells us each year the Headley amendment decreases the maximum amount that a taxing authority can levy when it increases based on what Mr. Headley thought was too fast. Okay, so the voters approved in 1996 with the establishment of AADL a 2.0 millage, right? Now we're down to 1.8173 over multiple years of Headley Amendment adjustments. This year, our Headley adjustment fraction starts with 2 nines, which is good. It's 0.997. So that means this will decrease, still be right above 1.8. So not a big decrease. And again, your Headley amendment, your Headley rollback only happens when you're growing. So it's like you never lose money due to Headley amendment. The issue is that the Headley amendment, once it has decreased your maximum, it never goes up again unless you have a Headley override election, right? So even if the tax base later decreases, it doesn't get undone. So that's all the wonky stuff, but basically we're in a very strong financial position. And what this draft is before we realize that we would basically have, based on the reports that have just been released, about an additional $600,000 above what this draft shows. So one thing that this draft shows that we have not done before is that you can see the very bottom right on the net surplus line, this budgets for a $500,000 surplus. We have always in the past budgeted a completely balanced budget with the expectation that we might not spend all of it, and we would put the rest into the capital fund or allow it to fall into the undesignated fund balance. What this budget is doing is budgeting to put $500,000 into the capital fund this year. You can see that in the surplus line, and then you can see transfer from general fund in the proposed 2026-2027 budget of $500,000. What we're anticipating doing is basically taking almost the full additional amount that we've now realized and adding it to that as well. So bringing our contribution to the capital fund closer to $1 million for next year. And that's just what's budgeted. Operationally, we may wind up with an operating surplus that goes into that as well. This is a time when we really need to be building up that capital fund. It won't go very far in paying for the entire building, but having funds in there allows us to pay for things that are outside the building itself. For example, if our temporary space needs any changes, right? That's something you could spend the capital fund on. If there's something that we have to, as we say in the business, VE or value engineer out of the budget because there's not room for it, the capital fund will give us some money to be able to put things back in that maybe can't fit in the construction budget. So capital fund gives us a lot of room, so it's a great time to be continuing to build that up. One other thing I want to point out, and this is just something that is happening in the public sector, is that one of the bills that didn't make it out of the 2024 lame duck session was about the maximum amounts that public employers can contribute toward their employees' health care. So we are still operating under the old law. So there is a cap to what we can do there, and we simply cannot provide more than that. However, that case is going before the Supreme Court this month, and depending on what happens, that bill could wind up getting signed. And if it does, that allows us to be able to contribute more to our employees' health care. And this budget is budgeting for us to be able to do that if the law changes. Okay, it remains to be seen exactly what happens, how it's implemented. There's a regulatory component of it, but we are in a position to be able to increase our contribution. This budget basically has the cap limits us to with a credit that we receive from our insurer. It limits us to 86% of the costs. Okay, so this allows us to go up a little bit higher than that, depending on what happens with the actual legislation. So that's why you see a fairly large increase in the employee benefits line to enable us to be able to do that if the law changes, which hopefully it will at some point during the fiscal year. Other big notes is that there's a substantial increase to the operating supplies line. That's something that's been running over this year because of changes from what is basically capitalized to what isn't capitalized, so that we have more items being purchased out of the operating supplies line because they're smaller purchases. So that's an increase there. And then another increase in purchase services, which pays for things like architects and engineers and designers and all that kind of stuff, which we are anticipating to be doing a lot of in the next several years. So that's where a big increase comes through there. But all told, that still has $850,000 in the capital outlay line, the $500,000 to be increased as a contribution to the capital fund. So we're in a very strong position here fiscally and ready to move forward. So this is not a voting item for tonight, but if anyone has any feedback or questions or anything they'd like to see for the draft that will come before the board for approval at the May meeting, we'd love to hear it.
We'll say I had a checklist of questions and you hit them all, so I appreciate it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'll note too, the Budget and Finance Committee had the opportunity to discuss this, in committee meeting. We interrogated it pretty thoroughly, asking a lot of questions about planned expenditures in all the different categories where we might expect maybe some variance for uncertainty, whether it's capital expenses, benefits or things related to staffing and personnel, renewals for software. So I think we heard at the top of this meeting about in the financial report, the conservative approach the library and staff have taken to budgeting. I'm very confident that this proposed budget reflects that same ethos, and that it leaves plenty of room for the library to be able to react to outcomes that might be uncertain, such as the ones that were mentioned a minute ago.
I do have a question about the materials line.
Sure.
That's like collections and stuff.
Correct.
Right? And so I know over the past couple of years, we've been finding that we're budgeting quite a bit more than we spend. And I'm curious why we're still doing that.
Yeah, well, the big reason, and you can see this, our approved budget for this year is $1,948,000. That's the
Right.
approved budget.
Right.
Our projection is to spend $1.4 million of that.
Yeah.
But the budget for next year is still 1.9. Now, you can see that represents a $50,000 decrease
yeah.
from the prior year. The big thing that gives us the ability to do is purchase a big subscription product in the middle of the year that we didn't know was coming. Right? Sometimes those are easily well into six figures. The other piece of it, and this isn't one of my favorite aspects of Overdrive and Libby, but we don't actually get to choose how much we spend on that. We are part of a consortium, and the consortium chooses. So we have to be able to flex to stay part of the consortium. If the consortium decides that it's a time for a 20% increase, we need to be in a position to be able to support that 20% increase. So it's better to have room for big ideas. The other thing that is mixed in there, sometimes you have big licensing things that come along, that maybe you want to license something. Those don't add up to a lot of money, but it's good to have room to maneuver there, even if we're not using it every year. You know, we're fortunate to not be a zero-based budget position. So if it doesn't get spent, it just falls through to the fund balance where it's available for future projects. So, you know, it's also, we don't want to, be whacking the collections budget and have that seem like a thing that we're intentionally doing, right? So this is a very consistent amount of money, even though we are facing less things that are available to buy, less things that are, particularly in the AV side, right? That market is changing very quickly. Audiobooks on CD are dying a very rapid death. So you're seeing a lot of change, but then those get replaced by us being able to be in the position to make new licenses. For example, the MLive subscription, right? We have a very good introductory rate there that is expected to change as time goes on. So this gives us room to maneuver there. Did I answer your question, Molly?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions on the budget, we will move over to public comments. Jardine, were there any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.